It wasn't just theft. It was a slow, careful murder of trust, and I wanted her to feel every piece as it shattered. My name is Alana, and I'm 23 years old. For as long as I can remember, my life has revolved around my younger sister, Daisy. She's 17 now, nonverbal, and lives with cerebral palsy. Every day is a careful dance of schedules, medications, and physical therapy. It's a lot, especially when you're also trying to hold down a part-time job at a bakery and chip away at a graphic design degree. Our mom, Nicole, who's 45, always played the role of the struggling single mother, the martyr. And for years, I bought it. Or at least I wanted to. The first crack in that facade came on a Tuesday afternoon. Mom had just gotten back from a much-needed weekend trip to Cabo with her boyfriend Taylor. She was still buzzing about the sun and the fancy resort, complaining about how exhausted she was from all the relaxing. I was trying to tidy up the living room, a never-ending battle against Mom's chaotic habits, when I spotted her purse slung over the armchair. I needed to grab her car keys for an errand, and as I reached in, a crumpled receipt fluttered out. It was from a spa in Cabo, the kind with hot stone massages and seaweed wraps. The total, circled in red ink, was $740. My stomach dropped. $740? For a spa treatment? Our household budget was tighter than a drum. Every month, it was a scramble to pay for Daisy's specialized food, her medical supplies, the co-pays for her therapists. We barely had enough for groceries sometimes. Where in the world did Mom get $740 for a spa day in Mexico? A cold knot formed in my chest. It wasn't just the amount, it was the audacity. All those times Mom had sighed dramatically about how expensive Daisy's care was, how she was drowning financially. All those times she'd asked me to cover a bill or pick up extra shifts because money was so tight. My mind immediately went to Daisy's disability account. It was set up years ago, a trust fund from a distant relative meant to cover Daisy's long-term care needs, things like specialized equipment or future therapies not covered by insurance. Mom was the primary trustee, but I had online access because I often helped manage Daisy's medical bills and appointments. It was a joint access, but I rarely looked at the balance, trusting Mom to handle it responsibly. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone. I navigated to the bank's app, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I logged in, bypassed our shared checking account, and clicked on Daisy's trust. The balance flashed on the screen, and my breath hitched. It was significantly lower than I remembered. I scrolled through the recent transactions, my eyes scanning for anything out of place. My stomach churned. There were dozens of them. ATM withdrawals, cash advances, online purchases from luxury boutiques, even a few transfers to an unknown account. All small enough to not immediately flag, but adding up, rapidly. I started adding them up on my phone's calculator. My vision blurred. $300 here, $500 there, $150 for miscellaneous supplies. The spa receipt from Cabo wasn't even the tip of the iceberg. Over the past 6 months, the total amount withdrawn from Daisy's account was exactly $12,840. Stolen. From Daisy, my sister, who couldn't speak, who relied on us for everything. I felt a scream building in my throat, but it got stuck. I closed the app, shoved the phone back in my pocket, and walked into the kitchen where Mom was humming, putting away her groceries. "Mom," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "where did you get the money for that spa treatment in Cabo?" I held up the crumpled receipt. She turned, her smile faltering for a split second before she plastered it back on. "Oh, that? Taylor treated me. It was a gift." Her eyes darted away. "No, it wasn't," I countered, my voice rising slightly. It was paid for with a card linked to Daisy's account, and so were another $12,000 over the last 6 months. Her face hardened. The mask of the loving, exhausted mother slipped, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. She scoffed, a dismissive wave of her hand. Oh, Alana, don't be so dramatic. It's not like she even knows what money is. The words hit me like a physical blow. My vision narrowed. The air in the kitchen grew thick, suffocating. My own mother, dismissing Daisy's very existence, her rights, her future, with such casual cruelty. It wasn't just theft. It was a profound betrayal, a desecration of the one person I loved most in the world. The horror was immense, but it was quickly eclipsed by a burning, icy resolve. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and in that moment, I knew. She had to pay, and I was going to make sure she felt every single piece of trust shatter, just like mine had. The words, "It's not like she even knows what money is," echoed in my head, a cruel, mocking refrain. My mother, Nicole, had just dismissed my sister, Daisy, as if she were an inanimate object, incapable of feeling, of having rights. The sheer audacity of it ignited a cold fury in me, a feeling far more potent than the initial shock. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about Daisy's dignity, her very humanity. Over the next few days, I became a silent detective in my own home. My graphic design studies took a back seat. My shifts at the bakery felt like an irritating distraction. Every spare moment was spent hunched over my laptop, cross-referencing bank statements from Daisy's account with Nicole's social media. It was sickeningly easy to connect the dots. A $450 withdrawal on a Tuesday in early November? That was the day Nicole posted a selfie with a new designer handbag, captioning it, "Treating myself after a long week of being supermom." The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. Another $200 withdrawal matched a photo of her and Taylor clinking wine glasses at a fancy tasting event. Mani-pedis, new clothes, expensive dinners out. All of it was meticulously documented on her feed, a glittering trail of stolen money. Taylor, who was 46, even had a new, shiny Rolex in one of the photos, a gift from Nicole, no doubt. He was 46, just a year older than my mom, and clearly just as morally bankrupt. I also started comparing the dates of these expenditures with my own mental log of Daisy's care. I was the one who often filled in when Mom was too tired or had an errand. I remembered countless afternoons when Mom claimed to be at the grocery store or a doctor's appointment, only to find her later bragging about a new purchase. Daisy, who needed constant supervision, was often left alone for hours during these errands, sometimes with just a cartoon playing on loop, or worse, just the quiet hum of the house. The dates of these neglected care moments aligned perfectly with Nicole's lavish spending. It wasn't just neglect, it was calculated abandonment. I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't just tell me I was overreacting. I called Sela, my best friend. She's 25, 2 years older than me, and has always been my rock, grounded and fiercely loyal. We met up at our usual coffee shop near the college campus. "She stole from Daisy, Sela," I whispered, the words still feeling unreal even as I said them aloud. I pushed my phone across the table, showing her the compiled evidence, the bank statements, the social media screenshots, my own notes on Daisy's neglected care. Sela's usually bright face paled as she scrolled through it all. "Oh, Alana. Oh, my God." Her voice was quiet, full of disbelief and anger. This is criminal. You have to confront her. "Show her all of this." I nodded, my jaw tight. "I already tried about the Cabo receipt. She just brushed it off. Said Daisy doesn't know what money is." "This is different," Sela insisted, tapping the screen. "This is irrefutable. She can't deny this many transactions, this much proof. Selah was right. I had to try again, armed with everything. That evening, after Daisy was asleep, I found Nicole in the living room, scrolling on her phone. I took a deep breath, gathered the printouts, and laid them out on the coffee table between us. "Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I went through Daisy's account, all of it, and I matched it to your social media. The spa treatments, the bags, the wine tastings, Taylor's watch. It's all here, $12,840, from Daisy's disability fund." Nicole's eyes widened, then narrowed. Her mouth twisted into a familiar sneer. "Are you serious right now, Alana? Are you trying to guilt-trip me again, after everything I do for this family?" She pushed the papers away, as if they were contaminated. "I'm drowning, Alana. Do you have any idea the pressure I'm under? I do everything for this family. You think this is easy? Being a single mother to a child like Daisy? I deserve a little something for myself." "A little something?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You stole from your disabled daughter. You left her alone while you went shopping. This isn't a little something, Mom. This is a crime." Her face contorted, a mask of righteous indignation. "How dare you? You're so ungrateful. I work myself to the bone. And you just sit there judging me. You have no idea what it's like." She stood up, her voice escalating. "I'm a good mother, a devoted mother. And you are a cruel, vindictive daughter for even suggesting otherwise." The gaslighting was masterful, a performance she'd perfected over years. She spun it, twisted it, until I was the villain, the one causing her pain. My anger flared, but beneath it, a cold, hard resolve solidified. Confrontation was useless. She would never admit it. She would never feel remorse. I waited until she stormed off to her room, slamming the door. Then I went back to my laptop. If she wouldn't admit it, I would make her. I'd seen a feature on the bank's online portal for joint account holders, allowing you to request detailed transaction records, sometimes even with associated security images from ATMs for fraud prevention. I went through Daisy's account again, selecting every suspicious withdrawal. I clicked the button to request the detailed transaction logs, including any available ATM security images or timestamps. It would take a day or two to process. The next morning, an email notification popped up. "Your requested transaction records are available." I clicked the link, downloaded the encrypted file, and opened it. It was a PDF, a long list of transactions with timestamps, locations, and for several of the ATM withdrawals, small, grainy thumbnail images. I scrolled through them, my heart hammering. One image, in particular, made my blood run cold. It was a blurry shot of Nicole, her face obscured but unmistakably her, standing at an ATM. The timestamp was clear. November 14th, 2:17 p.m. I remembered that day with agonizing clarity. Nicole had told me she was going to a very important doctor's appointment and couldn't take Daisy. She'd left Daisy alone at home, in her wheelchair in the living room, for nearly 4 hours. And here was the proof. My mother, withdrawing cash from Daisy's account, while my sister, who couldn't call for help, was left utterly vulnerable and alone. The ATM surveillance image of Nicole, taken while Daisy was left alone, burned a hole in my mind. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the blatant disregard for Daisy's safety, her well-being. My mother wasn't just a thief. She was a neglectful caregiver, and that was a line I couldn't unsee. My quiet investigation intensified. I started documenting everything, not just the financial transactions, but the patterns of neglect. The days Nicole would claim a headache and leave Daisy in front of the TV for hours, only for me to find out later she'd been at a spa. The missed therapy appointments. It was a meticulous, painful process, like dissecting a wound. One afternoon, while picking Daisy up from her physical therapy center, I struck up a conversation with Sydney. She was 19, a bright, earnest teen volunteer who often helped with Daisy's sessions. She was always so kind to Daisy, gently encouraging her, making her laugh. I'd seen her around for months, but we'd never really talked beyond polite greetings. "Hey, Sydney," I started, trying to sound casual. "You know, my mom sometimes talks about how busy Daisy's therapy schedule is. Does she ever miss sessions? I feel like I hear about a lot of cancellations." Sydney hesitated, her brow furrowing slightly. "Well, sometimes Miss Santiago calls in. Says Daisy's too fragile or not feeling well for the group activities. But Daisy always seems fine when you bring her." She paused, then lowered her voice. "Actually, there was that one time, a few weeks ago, when Daisy was supposed to go on the sensory garden field trip. Miss Santiago called and said Daisy had a fever, but then I saw her car in the parking lot later that day. She was just sitting in the waiting area, on her phone, for like an hour. Daisy missed the whole trip. My blood ran cold. She was here? Just sitting in the waiting area?" Sydney nodded. "Yeah, it was weird. I thought maybe she was waiting for another appointment, but she just left after a bit. She does that sometimes, calls in sick for Daisy, but then just hangs around the center or leaves early." "Does the center have, like, security cameras?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Sydney's eyes widened slightly, sensing the shift in my tone. "Yeah, we have cameras in the main lobby, the waiting area, and the hallways. For safety, you know." She looked at me, a flicker of understanding in her gaze. "Why?" I took a chance. "Sydney, my mom, she's been doing some things that are hurting Daisy. I need proof. If there's footage of her here, claiming Daisy's sick, but then just wasting time or leaving, it would help me. A lot." Sydney bit her lip, clearly conflicted. That's a big deal, Alana. I could get in trouble." "I know," I said, my voice earnest, "and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't for Daisy. She deserves better than this. She deserves someone to fight for her." Sydney looked at Daisy, who was quietly watching us from her wheelchair, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Then she looked back at me, her resolve hardening. "Okay, the admin office has a computer where we can access the footage. I can get you access for a few minutes after my shift tomorrow, when no one's around." The next day, true to her word, Sydney gave me temporary access to the center's security footage. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the dates Sydney mentioned and others I suspected. There she was, Nicole, sitting in the waiting room, scrolling on her phone, while Daisy was supposedly too fragile for a field trip. Another clip showed Nicole signing Daisy out early, then lingering in the parking lot for 20 minutes, talking on her phone, before driving off, presumably to one of her errands. The evidence mounted. The final straw came a week later. I was in my room, trying to study, when I overheard Nicole on the phone in the living room. She was talking to someone, probably Taylor, and her voice was low, conspiratorial. I paused, my pen hovering over my notebook. "Honestly, Taylor, it's just exhausting," she sighed dramatically. "Between Alana's constant guilt trips and Daisy, God, sometimes I just feel like I'm trapped, like I'm chained to a vegetable drain." The words hit me like a physical blow. A vegetable drain. My own mother, describing her daughter, my sister, as a burden, a drain. My hand instinctively reached for my phone, which was already recording. I'd started doing that, just in case, ever since the first confrontation. I let it record for another minute, capturing more of her complaining, her self-pity, her utter lack of empathy. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The anger, the betrayal, the sheer disgust had reached a boiling point. Confrontation was useless. Legal action felt too slow, too hidden. Nicole thrived on public adoration, on being the devoted single mother. That was her currency, her protection, and I was going to strip it all away. The idea for Daisy's birthday party, her 18th birthday coming up in a few weeks, solidified in my mind. It would be the perfect stage. As I started mentally outlining the plan, a new thought struck me. I went back to Daisy's bank statements. There were a few smaller transactions, not directly linked to her usual spending, that I hadn't been able to trace to a specific store or social media post. They were just listed as online purchase or payment processing. I dug deeper, cross-referencing with Nicole's phone records, looking for anything unusual, and then I saw it. A series of small recurring payments to a third-party prepaid Visa card provider. She wasn't just using Daisy's bank account directly. She was laundering some of the money, loading it onto a prepaid card to hide the trail. It was a small detail, but it showed a level of premeditation, a calculated effort to conceal that made my stomach clench. She wasn't just impulsive, she was cunning, and that made my plan even more necessary. The words vegetable drain were a constant poisonous hum in my mind. They cemented my resolve. Nicole had to be exposed, and not just to me, or to Sella, or to a judge behind closed doors. She needed to be exposed to everyone who had ever praised her, everyone she had ever manipulated with her devoted single mother act. Daisy's 18th birthday was just a few weeks away, and it was the perfect cruel stage. I started planning immediately, enlisting Sella's help. She was horrified by the vegetable drain comment and fully on board. "This isn't just about the money anymore, Alana," she'd said, her voice tight with anger. "This is about her soul. And Daisy deserves justice." My first step was to organize a surprise birthday party for Daisy. Nicole loved attention, so a party, especially one where she could bask in the glow of being the heroic mother, would be irresistible. I drafted a guest list that was a carefully curated roster of Nicole's enablers and victims. There was Clint Webb, Nicole's cousin, who was 38 and a social worker. He was always gushing about Nicole's sacrifice and how she was a saint for raising Daisy. He needed to see the truth. Then there was Emerson Shepard, 40, Nicole's high school friend and Daisy's godmother, who saw herself as family and constantly praised Nicole's strength. The therapist from Daisy's center, the church friends who brought casseroles and whispered prayers, the neighbors who admired Nicole's resilience. They all made the list. Even Barry Santos, Nicole and Clint's uncle, 62, the respected family elder whose opinions swayed everyone, was invited. I sent out invitations, making sure they were worded to emphasize Nicole's supposed dedication. Join us in celebrating Daisy's 18th birthday and honoring the incredible love and tireless efforts of her devoted mother, Nicole. I made sure Nicole saw the draft and approved it, beaming at the flattery. She was thrilled, already picturing herself at the center of attention. While Nicole was busy accepting RSVPs and planning her outfit, I was building my weapon. I borrowed a projector from the college's media lab, a legitimate loan for a graphic design project. My project was a 7-minute exposé, a meticulously crafted presentation of Nicole's lies. I started with the bank statements, highlighting the 12th house as $840 total. Then came the social media screenshots, Nicole's selfies with new bags, her wine-tasting photos, Taylor's new Rolex, all cross-referenced with the dates and amounts of the withdrawals. I included the grainy ATM surveillance footage, zoomed in on Nicole's figure, with the timestamp clearly visible, linking it to the days Daisy was left alone. Next, I added the security footage from Daisy's therapy center, showing Nicole sitting idly in the waiting room while Daisy missed her field trip, or leaving early after claiming Daisy was sick. The contrast between Nicole's public persona and her private actions was stark. The most damning pieces were the audio recordings. I edited in the clip of Nicole calling Daisy a vegetable drain. Her voice, cold and dismissive, would be unmistakable. I also included a few snippets of her conversations with Taylor, where she boasted about her genius for getting people to feel sorry for her, and one particularly chilling line where she laughed, "The best con is the one they call charity." I had to be careful with the audio, making sure it was clear enough to be understood, but not so long it would bore the audience. It was a delicate balance between impact and pacing. As the party date approached, Nicole started to get suspicious. I was spending a lot of time on my laptop, hunched over the screen, and I was being unusually secretive. I'd always been the quiet, dutiful daughter, so my sudden extra effort for Daisy's party must have seemed out of character. One evening, I was deep in editing, fine-tuning the transitions between a bank statement and a social media post, when I heard the creak of the floorboards behind me. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. Too late. "Alana?" Nicole's voice was sharp, laced with suspicion. "What are you doing? What is all this?" I slammed the laptop shut, my mind racing for an excuse. "Mom, you scared me." I forced a laugh, trying to appear flustered. It's just a digital scrapbook for Daisy. For her birthday, I wanted to make something special for her, you know? All her photos, memories, little videos." Nicole eyed me, her gaze piercing. She walked closer, trying to peer at the laptop. "A digital scrapbook? Why are you being so secretive about it? And why do you need the college's projector for a scrapbook?" "It's a surprise," I said, trying to sound excited. "And I wanted to project it really big on the wall, like a movie, for everyone to see. It's going to be really cool, Mom." "I've been working on it for weeks." She paused, her suspicion warring with her love for being the center of attention. The idea of a movie about Daisy, implying a tribute to her own supermom efforts, was clearly appealing. She finally nodded slowly. "Well, make sure it's good. Don't embarrass me." "It'll be great, Mom," I said, a chilling smile playing on my lips. "It'll be absolutely unforgettable." She walked away, seemingly satisfied, but I knew she wasn't entirely convinced. The tension in the house ratcheted up a notch. Every time she looked at me, I felt her eyes probing, trying to figure out what I was really up to. But it was too late. The trap was set. Daisy's 18th birthday, the day she officially became an adult, would also be the day her mother's carefully constructed facade came crashing down. The day of the party arrived, heavy with an almost unbearable tension. Daisy, now officially 18, was dressed in a beautiful soft blue dress I'd picked out for her hair adorned with a sparkly headband. She looked radiant, her quiet smiles and soft hums a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I'd spent the morning making sure she was comfortable, fed, and happy, her needs a grounding force amidst my nervous anticipation. Our living room, usually a cluttered mess, had been transformed. Balloons, streamers, and a large, happy 18th birthday Daisy banner adorned the walls. The projector I'd borrowed from college was set up discreetly in the corner, aimed at the largest blank wall, its lens covered with a piece of dark cloth for now. My laptop, containing the 7-minute exposé, was connected and ready. Guests started arriving around 2 p.m., the house filled with chatter, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Nicole, at 45, was in her element, flitting from group to group, accepting compliments on the party, on Daisy, on herself. She wore a bright, almost triumphant smile, basking in the glow of being the heroic mother. Clint, Her cousin and the social worker, 38, arrived early, pulling Nicole into a warm hug and telling her how amazing she was. Emerson, Daisy's godmother, 40, was there too, doting on Daisy and praising Nicole's sacrifice. The church friends, the therapists, the neighbors, they all showed up, a perfect audience for Nicole's performance. Even Barry Santos, our 62-year-old family elder, arrived, his presence lending an air of solemn approval to the gathering. I watched Nicole, a cold knot in my stomach. She was so oblivious, so consumed by her own self-congratulation. It was almost sickening. Taylor, her boyfriend 46, arrived a little later, looking slick in a new shirt, and immediately gravitated towards Nicole, whispering in her ear and making her laugh. They looked like a picture-perfect couple, utterly unburdened. Around 3:30 p.m., the cake was brought out. It was a beautiful, multi-tiered creation, decorated with edible flowers. Everyone gathered around Daisy, singing, "Happy Birthday." Daisy, sensing the excitement, let out a soft giggle, her eyes wide. Nicole stood proudly beside her, beaming, accepting pats on the back and whispered admiration. This was it, the moment. As the last notes of the song faded, and before anyone could start cutting the cake, I stepped forward. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice clear and surprisingly steady. "Before we cut the cake, I wanted to share something special. I've been working on a digital scrapbook for Daisy, a collection of memories and moments from her life. I thought it would be a nice way to celebrate her 18th birthday." Nicole's eyes flickered to me, a hint of suspicion returning, but she quickly replaced it with a saccharine smile. "Oh, how sweet, Alana, my thoughtful daughter." She probably thought it would be a montage of cute baby photos and Daisy's therapy milestones, reflecting well on her. I walked over to the projector, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pulled the cloth off the lens. The room was already dim from the curtains being drawn for the projection. I clicked the spacebar on my laptop. The screen flickered to life. The first image that flashed up was a blown-up screenshot of Daisy's bank statement. The total, $12,240, was circled in angry red. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Nicole's smile vanished, replaced by a look of confusion, then dawning horror. The presentation moved quickly. Next came the first ATM surveillance photo. Nicole, her face partially obscured but undeniably her, at the ATM, the date and time clearly visible. Then a split screen. On one side, that ATM photo. On the other, a social media selfie of Nicole, taken on the same day holding a designer handbag. The caption, "Treating myself after a long week of being supermom." A gasp went through the crowd. People started whispering, craning their necks. Nicole's face was ashen. The video continued, relentless. More bank statements, more social media posts. Nicole at a wine tasting, a new necklace around her throat. Taylor with his new Rolex. All dated, all matched to withdrawals from Daisy's account. The room was silent now, save for the hum of the projector and the occasional sharp intake of breath. Then came the security footage from Daisy's therapy center. Nicole, sitting in the waiting room, scrolling on her phone, while on the other side of the screen, a text overlay explained Daisy had missed her sensory garden field trip that day, supposedly due to a fever. Another clip showed Nicole leaving the center early. The air in the room grew thick with disbelief and disgust. People were exchanging shocked glances. Clint's jaw was slack. Emerson had her hand clapped over her mouth. Barry Santos looked utterly betrayed. Finally, the audio began. Nicole's voice, clear and cold, filled the room. "Honestly, Taylor, it's just exhausting. Between Alana's constant guilt trips and Daisy, God, sometimes I just feel like I'm trapped, like I'm chained to a vegetable drain." A collective, horrified gasp. Daisy, oblivious, hummed softly beside her cake. The final clip was Nicole's voice again, laughing. The best con is the one they call charity. That was it. The dam broke. Nicole let out a strangled cry, her face contorted in a mask of pure rage and panic. She lunged forward, a wild animal, aiming for the projector. "Stop it! Alana! You bitch! Stop it!" But before she could reach it, Clint, who had been standing closest, his face a mask of shock and dawning horror, instinctively stepped in front of her. He put his arm out, blocking her path. "Nicole, what are you doing?" he demanded, his voice shaking. He looked from the screen, where the damning evidence was still playing, to Nicole's furious, exposed face. The truth finally was undeniable. The room exploded. Nicole, thwarted by Clint, let out a frustrated shriek. "Get out of my way, Clint! This is a lie! She fabricated all of it!" Her voice was shrill, desperate, but the projector continued to hum, casting the damning evidence onto the wall. The image of her at the ATM, the sound of her calling Daisy a vegetable drain, were still echoing. Clint, 38, stood frozen for a second, his arm still outstretched blocking Nicole. His face, usually so composed, was a mixture of shock, betrayal, and a dawning, terrible understanding. He looked from the screen to Nicole, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Fabricated? Nicole, that's your voice. And the bank statements, the dates." Emerson, Daisy's godmother, 40, stepped forward, her face contorted in anger. "Nicole! How could you? Daisy's godmother! You told me she was sick when she missed that field trip. You told me you were struggling, and all this time, you were stealing from her?" Her voice cracked with emotion. Taylor, 46, Nicole's boyfriend, who had been standing near the back, suddenly looked like a cornered rat. He glanced frantically around the room, seeing the accusing stares, the utter disgust on people's faces. When a few guests started murmuring about his new Rolex, he mumbled something about having to go and practically bolted for the door, disappearing into the chaos. Nicole spun around, her eyes wild, trying to find an ally. "This is Alana's doing. She's always hated me. She's vindictive. She wants to destroy me." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "She's trying to ruin my life. It's all fake, a setup." But the evidence was too overwhelming. The images, the dates, the voice recordings, they spoke for themselves. The people in the room, who had for years admired Nicole's supposed sacrifice, now saw her for what she truly was. The mask had shattered irrevocably. Barry Santos, our 62-year-old family elder, slowly rose from his chair, his face etched with profound disappointment. "Nicole," he said, his voice quiet but firm, cutting through the rising din. This is a disgrace to our family, to Daisy." The room divided. Some guests, visibly uncomfortable, started to edge towards the door, whispering amongst themselves. Others, like Emerson and Clint, remained, their faces a mixture of anger and profound sadness. Daisy, thankfully, seemed largely unaffected by the shouting, perhaps accustomed to Nicole's outbursts. She continued to hum softly, her eyes fixed on the colorful cake, the quiet center of all the swirling emotions. Clint, after a moment of stunned silence, pulled out his phone. He walked a few steps away from Nicole, his back to her, and started dialing. I heard him say, "Yes, this is Clint Webb, social worker. I need to report an urgent case of financial exploitation and neglect involving a minor with disabilities. I have irrefutable evidence. Yes, video, audio, bank records. The child's name is Daisy Santiago. She's 18, nonverbal with cerebral palsy. Her mother, Nicole Santiago, is the perpetrator." My heart soared. a mix of vindication and fear. It was happening. The official channels, previously passive, would now be forced to act. Clint, as a social worker, knew exactly what to do and how to escalate it. His word, backed by the evidence I'd provided, would carry immense weight. Nicole saw Clint on the phone, heard the words financial exploitation, and her face crumpled. The rage turned to a desperate, pathetic plea. Clint, no! Please, don't do this. You know how hard I work. You know I love Daisy. But Clint didn't even look at her. He continued speaking into the phone, his voice grim. Yes, I'm at the residence now. The evidence was just presented publicly. The child is currently safe, but the mother's behavior is erratic and potentially dangerous. We need immediate intervention. The party, if it could still be called that, was over. The cake remained uncut. The balloons seemed to droop. The air was thick with the stench of exposed lies. People were leaving rapidly now, not wanting to be caught in the fallout. Sela came over to me, putting a comforting hand on my arm. You did it, Alana, she whispered, her eyes shining with a mix of awe and concern. You really did it. I just nodded, my gaze fixed on Nicole, who was now sobbing hysterically, making a scene, trying to garner sympathy that no one was willing to give. The tears were for herself, not for Daisy. The next day was a blur of phone calls and official visits. Social services, prompted by Clint's urgent report and the overwhelming evidence, began their official inquiries. 2 social workers arrived at our house in the morning, their faces grim as they reviewed the evidence I had compiled. They spoke to me, to Clint, and then, briefly, to a still sobbing Nicole. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. It was Clint. His voice was tired, but firm. Alana, he said, I just wanted to let you know. I filed for emergency protection for Daisy. Given the financial exploitation and the documented neglect, especially the instances of her being left alone, the agency agreed it was necessary. They're starting the process to remove Nicole from the home temporarily while they conduct a full investigation. Daisy will be staying with you for now, under temporary guardianship. A wave of relief, so profound it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. Daisy was safe. She was finally truly safe from Nicole. The implosion had begun. The days following Daisy's birthday party were a whirlwind of official procedures. Clint's call confirming emergency protection for Daisy was just the beginning. Within 48 hours, social services arrived with a formal order. Nicole, still oscillating between furious denial and pathetic victimhood, was forced to pack a small bag and leave the house. The house, our home, suddenly felt lighter, cleaner, as if a toxic cloud had finally dissipated. Daisy remained with me, under temporary guardianship. It was a relief, a profound sense of peace, knowing she was truly safe, truly cared for, without Nicole's unpredictable presence looming over us. I was still 23, Daisy was 18, and suddenly I was her primary caregiver, legally and emotionally. It was a daunting responsibility, but one I welcomed with open arms. Nicole, 45, didn't go quietly. For days, her phone calls and texts were relentless. She tried guilt-tripping every extended family member she could reach. She called Aunt Carol, Uncle Mark, even distant cousins, spinning a tale of an ungrateful, vindictive daughter who had fabricated lies to steal her sister. She played the martyr, the heartbroken mother, begging for sympathy and financial support. But the party had done its work. The public exposure, the irrefutable evidence, had shattered her credibility. Clint, 38, had already spoken to many of them, explaining the severity of the situation from a professional standpoint. Emerson, 40, Daisy's godmother, had called several family members herself, expressing her disgust and confirming the truth of what she'd witnessed. Nicole's usual manipulation tactics fell flat. No one was sending her money. No one was offering her a place to stay. A few days after Nicole left, our uncle, Barry Santos, 62, came to visit. He was the family elder, highly respected, and his opinion truly mattered. He sat on our sofa, looking smaller, older than I'd ever seen him. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Alana," he began, his voice thick with emotion, I am so sorry. For all of it. For enabling her. For believing her lies. We all did. She was so good at it. The poor, struggling single mother. We wanted to believe her." He buried his face in his hands for a moment, then looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. Daisy deserved so much better. You deserved so much better." It was a genuine apology, raw and heartfelt. It wasn't just for himself, but for the whole family who had, in their own way, contributed to Nicole's facade. "It's okay, Uncle Barry," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "She fooled everyone. She fooled me for years." "No," he insisted, shaking his head. "No, she didn't fool you. You saw the truth, and you had the courage to expose it." "That takes incredible strength, Alana." He reached out and took my hand, squeezing it. "I want to help. Financially, legally, whatever Daisy needs, and whatever you need to make sure Nicole faces the consequences." His offer was a profound relief. With his support, navigating the legal complexities felt less daunting. He connected me with a family lawyer he knew, who specialized in elder and dependent abuse cases. The investigation by social services moved quickly. With the mountain of evidence I'd compiled, the bank statements, the ATM photos, the therapy center footage, the audio recordings, they had an airtight case. They worked closely with the police. Within weeks, formal charges were filed against Nicole Santiago for financial exploitation of a disabled person. It was a serious felony. Taylor Franklin, Nicole's boyfriend, had vanished completely. After bolting from the party, he'd apparently packed his bags and disappeared. He wasn't answering Nicole's calls, and his social media accounts had been deleted. He had managed to keep his hands technically clean, enough to avoid direct charges, but his reputation was in tatters, and he clearly wanted no part of the fallout. He was a coward, just as I suspected. The legal process was slow but relentless. Nicole tried every trick in the book. She pleaded poverty, claimed mental distress, even tried to blame me, saying I had manipulated Daisy's accounts. But the evidence was too strong, too consistent. My meticulous documentation, combined with Clint's testimony as a social worker and the raw, undeniable audio and video, left no room for doubt. Finally, the climax arrived. Nicole was formally charged and, facing overwhelming evidence, pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of financial exploitation to avoid a lengthy trial and potentially harsher sentence. The judge ordered her to repay the full restitution of $12,040 to Daisy's disability account. It wasn't a prison sentence, but it was a public conviction, a permanent mark on her record. More importantly, she was stripped of her credibility, her carefully constructed image of the devoted mother utterly destroyed. Her support networks, the very people she had conned for years, had turned their backs on her. She was evicted from the house, and a permanent restraining order was put in place, preventing her from having any contact with Daisy or accessing her funds. The money, the $12,040, was back in Daisy's account. But the true victory wasn't just the financial restitution, it was the public dismantling of Nicole's lies, the shattering of her carefully crafted facade. She was no longer the saint, the hero. She was a convicted thief, exposed for the world to see, and that, for Daisy's sake, was everything. The air in our house feels different now. lighter. It's been 8 months since Daisy's birthday party, since the truth screamed its way into the light. 8 months since Nicole was forced out, since the legal system, prodded by Clint and Uncle Barry, finally caught up to her. Nicole, 45, is living in a small one-bedroom apartment across town. I heard through a distant cousin that she tried to get a job at a local boutique, but her conviction for financial exploitation made it impossible. She's working odd jobs, probably under the table, and her once glamorous social media feed is now silent, a ghost of its former self. She no longer has access to Daisy, to her funds, or to the life she built on lies. The restraining order is permanent, and Daisy's guardianship is now officially mine, a responsibility I've embraced fully. Daisy, now 18, is thriving. With the restitution money back in her account and Uncle Barry's generous legal help, we were able to enroll her in a specialized day program for young adults with cerebral palsy. It's a place with dedicated therapists, sensory rooms, and activities tailored to her needs. She goes 3 days a week, and I can see the difference in her. She's more engaged, more responsive. Sometimes, when I pick her up, she hums a little tune, a quiet melody of contentment. It's a sound I never truly heard before, overshadowed by Nicole's constant drama. Our family is rebuilding, slowly, around Daisy and me. Clint, 38, has become a steady, supportive presence. He checks in regularly, not just as a social worker, but as family, genuinely remorseful for having been so blind. Emerson, 40, Daisy's godmother, visits often, bringing Daisy little gifts and spending time with her, making up for lost years. Uncle Barry, 62, has been a rock, helping me navigate the complexities of guardianship and ensuring Daisy's financial future is secure. Sela, 25, my best friend, has been there through every single step, my confidant and my strength. We formed a community of care, a true family, built on honesty and genuine love for Daisy, not on manipulation or pretense. My graphic design studies are back on track. I'm still working at the bakery part-time, but with Daisy's program and Uncle Barry's support, the financial pressure has eased considerably. I'm even starting to think about my own future, something that felt impossible just a year ago. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I feel peace. The truth is, it's not about peace in the way most people imagine it. There's no sudden, blissful calm. The betrayal still stings. The memory of her words still burns. But I don't regret it. Not for a second. What I did wasn't about healing. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about truth. It was about justice for Daisy, for the voiceless, for the vulnerable. Nicole's facade was a towering, rotten structure, and it needed to collapse. My actions were the earthquake that brought it down. It was a brutal, necessary act. I wasn't looking for forgiveness, just the kind of justice only truth can burn into memory, and I made sure it screamed,